Okay, so now that you have your foundation on, it's time to conceal. There are obviously different types of concealers, three kind of different types of concealers really. You have your correctors, you have your under eye concealer, and then you have your blemish concealers, or like skin toning, outening, or concealers for like evening out skin tone. So I'm going to start off with my under eye concealer. Some of my favourite ones would be like this Fit Me concealer by Maybelline. I use the pink toned one because pink is more brightening for underneath the skin. Or for underneath the eyes. I love the Select Cover Up by MAC. This is a brilliant concealer. The concealers I wouldn't use under the eyes, particularly for anyone in their late 20s onwards, would be thicker cream concealers. So like these ones that are more for blemishes, so like the stick concealers or the drier concealers that are great for blemishes or that might have some powder in them. I don't really like these for underneath the eyes. If you're quite young, you can generally get away with them. Another concealer I love would be like the Maybelline, no, this is the Collection 2000 concealer, which I can't remember the name of now. Oh, the Lasting Perfection concealer. The number's gone off it, or the name's gone off it. I love the MAC Mineralized concealers. I think they're brilliant. And then some of these like illuminating concealers, like the Collection 2000 Illuminating Touch, and so on and so forth. Bobbi Brown also do really good concealers. They're very, very creamy for underneath the eye. But generally the creamier the concealer, the higher the likelihood that there will be lines underneath the eyes. So you will need to set those with powder. But generally for these liquid, especially the newer liquid concealers, a lot of these can be worn without setting them with powder. So they're really, really good. Another brilliant one is the Pro Longwear concealer, which I don't have in front of me, but that's one of my all-time favourite ones by MAC as well. But for this, I'm going to use the Fit Me concealer by Maybelline. So because this is in a wand and it's for myself, I'm just going to apply it directly onto the skin. If it's one of those ones in a tube, you could put some onto the back of your hand like I did with the foundation, and then use your brush to apply it. So I'll just pop it there, and then I nearly always pop it underneath my brow arch as well, because it can kind of act as a bit of a highlighter. My favourite brushes for applying concealer would be a synthetic blending brush. This is the EB13 by Sedona Lace. Another brilliant one would be like this Real Techniques one, which is the base shadow brush. Another brilliant one for buffing in concealer. You just get a really smooth application. You can of course use the more natural hair bristle ones, so like the 217 by MAC, or this is the E25 by Sigma, the equivalent, or the Sedona Lace equivalent to the MAC 224. This is the number 863. They all work perfectly. And then you can use your more traditional concealer brushes as well. The way I use those is by patting on the concealer or kind of painting on the concealer first, and then using your fingers to blend it in. So I'll do that maybe with one side. So you do exactly like what I said. You just use it to paint on the concealer. But I find you will be working with these kind of brushes longer to get rid of any lines or obvious marks on the skin. So you want to use your fingers then to blend away any noticeable product on the skin. And obviously the heat of your finger will help this settle into the skin as well. So this is really good for creamier concealers where you want to kind of melt them in a little bit more. And just keep patting and patting and patting, and you can kind of roll the finger over the area as well. And where you want to concentrate the most concealer is on the very inner area where it gets darkest. So you might find that you'll want to do a second covering of concealer in just that area. And you can use your finger to help blend it in, and then just switch to a clean finger so that you're not adding loads of excess. And then anywhere where you're very crepey or very wrinkly, if you're slightly older, you don't want to add too much concealer, and generally you won't be too discoloured around that area as well. So try and have it concentrated more on the inner corner. Then when I'm using my blending brush, I'll just buff it into the skin. I don't always use my finger to set it into the skin because I find this is enough, unless it is, like I said, a thicker creamy concealer. And then sometimes I will just go over with the pad of my finger and help press it into the skin. But with the more liquid concealers, I find that using the brush is enough on its own. And then if I was using the concealer from the back of my hand, I would just pick up some of the concealer and bounce it back into the area where I want more coverage. So knowing what colour concealer to use is very important as well. Generally, if it's just to brighten, you want to go for pink toned concealers. Go for something that is just marginally lighter than your own skin tone. You don't want to go for anything that's too light, or else it'll give that reverse panda effect and make you look like you've got headlights around the eye area. A lot of people will require colour correction, me included. I tend to get very blue around these inner corners, and I will use a peach or orange toned concealer. Bobbi Brown do great ones, and their MAC Pro also do great ones as well. If you are more purple around the under eye area, you may need to use a yellow toned concealer. This is colour theory, so yellow will counteract purple. Same with the blue, the orange counteracts blue. I find the people who are very, very, very dark brown around the eye area may need to use something very, very bright on top, something very, very orange. So even like Melange lipstick, which is like a neon orange lipstick by MAC, that can sometimes be used first around the very dark area, and then you'll go ahead with a concealer in your own skin tone on top to then even out everything on top. So depending on the colour requirements, you may need to mix and match, or try a few different ones before you find out what's perfect for your own skin. Then correctors can be used on the rest of the face as well. You can use green concealers, something like this, on very, very red areas. So they tend to be minty green. You'll just pop this on the areas where they're red. If you put it on anywhere that's not red, it will look green. But if you just put it on the areas that are red, it will just balance out the red and it'll look more neutral, and then you can go over with your own skin toned concealer on top of that again. So for blemishes, you want to go into something a little bit drier. This one by Vichy is my favourite. It's the Vichy Derma Blend. So I usually tend to warm it on the back of my hand first. The best ones sometimes do need a little bit of warming because they can be a bit thicker, and you can use your finger if you want, or you can use a small little precision brush, or you can just use the same brush you used for your under eye concealer, and I'll just lightly tap it over any areas that need a little bit more concealer. And the important thing about this is that it has to be exactly the same colour as your skin tone or your foundation or your face. If you're using something that's not the same colour, it will be really obvious on the face, and it'll more so highlight any of the blemishes or the imperfections rather than conceal them. And by bouncing the concealer in place rather than rubbing, you're going to get much better coverage, and you're not going to disrupt the foundation application underneath. So where I tend to apply concealer would be around the nose area, where I get quite red. The reason you apply the concealer after your foundation is because the foundation will have already concealed some, so you'll end up using less concealer that way. So around the nose area, I personally put some a little bit down the centre of the nose. This is more from when I had very dark freckles there, but I'm still in that habit. A little bit between the eyes, because I have very subtle, but I have little scars there from when I was pierced a couple of years ago. Then the chin area, and some people require concealing around the mouth, because a lot of women tend to get a little bit red around the mouth or a little bit dark around the mouth. I don't get that, so just put it where you need it yourself, and of course then on any blemishes or any scarred areas or anything like that. And once you have your concealer on, you are ready to move on to the next step, which is setting your foundation and your concealer with powder. So I'll show that in the next video, and in the meantime, thanks a million for watching, guys. Slán!